Begin Self-Publishing, episode number 46. How to get the most out of conferences.
Interested in self-publishing but don't know where to start? Want to get your book onto Amazon? Want to hold your paperback book in your hands? Learn how on the Begin Self-Publishing podcast with your host, Tim Lewis.
As I hinted at previous shows, I've been away for a while, both on holiday, or vacation as they say in the US, and at a marketing conference in San Diego called Social Media Marketing World. I went to this last year and it's a fantastic conference, but it does require me quite a lot of effort to get there and to get back. And this year I went back via Washington DC, so I could see all the various museums and things in Washington, and also to give me a slight break in terms of trying to alleviate the jet lag of the 8 hours time difference between California and London. As I've only just arrived back in the last day or so, this episode is going to be another shorter one. However, I have made contact with quite a few people at the conference who I should be able to get on in the next few episodes to help with taking us through some of the areas of particular platforms of social media. Given the theme of conferences, I thought I'd do a quick show on how to get the most out of conferences. These are just general bits of advice that I've learned over the last few years when I've been to quite a few conferences, both writing and non-writing conferences. I do have a predilection for marketing and other conferences, though I've also been to a few writing ones as well. In general, conferences are a fantastic opportunity to meet people and also to learn. Now, depending on the conference, you'll have a balance of the networking part of it and the learning part. But I think it's important to try and get as much out of it as you can in both regards. So I'm going to take you through a few pieces of advice which I've discovered over my last few years of going to conferences. My first piece of advice is to arrive early and to leave late. Now, this might sound like an expensive piece of advice, as in you're wasting money on a hotel room for an extra night, both at the beginning and the end. But I think unless you desperately need to be somewhere or you've got financial problems, it's worth spending that extra time at the venue. The reason for this is it gives you a chance to go to any meetups before or after the conference, and it's surprising how many of these actually occur. For example, I was planning to go to the London Book Fair. As it was local, in the end I didn't end up going because I was quite ill with a cold at the time. But if I had actually not flown out to Social Media Marketing World on the last day of that conference, I could have gone to a big meetup that the Alliance of Independent Authors people had on the Friday after the conference. So it's worthwhile, if you're planning to go to a conference, to be around in wherever the venue is, both the day before and the day after the conference, because it will give you the opportunity at least to meet people beforehand. And it's fantastic if you've got the opportunity to meet people before a conference. And most conferences have some sort of pre-meetup event, or there will be people in other organisations who want to do things before or after the conference. If you've got that option, it's worth to book those extra days before and after the conference. Also, obviously, if you're flying from a long way, then you probably want to be there a day or two early to help with the jet lag. My second piece of advice is to pace yourself. Many conferences have large network opportunities in terms of parties and things in the evening, but you also don't want to be missing out in the daytime because you're so tired from all your networking at night that you can't do anything. I've not yet mastered this myself, but I'm getting better at it. There's been quite a few conferences where you'll go out late on one of the parties in the night, and then the next day you'll miss a whole load of opportunities to learn or to connect with other people because you're too tired from the night before. My third piece of advice is to take every opportunity to connect with people online before the conference. And if possible, try to arrange a few meetups and lunches and things with people at the conference. This will make it far easier for you to connect with people at the conference. It's very easy if you're shy or very introverted or just generally not that used to going to conferences to end up just going to the sessions, not talking to anybody really, and then leaving and feeling unsatisfied. If you've made some connections with people online before who you also know are going to the conference, then that makes things a lot easier because then you've got somebody you've got a reason to talk to them. You've been talking to them online. This is something the social media marketing world does very well. They've got like a Slack group and a Facebook group and a LinkedIn group. But to be honest, most conferences have some sort of pre-meetup online group. And even if they don't, I'm sure you could find people who are going to the same conference. Just go to normal Facebook groups about the subject matter and ask if anybody is going to the same conference as you. Make an effort to connect with them beforehand and say, oh, I'll meet you for lunch, or I'd like to meet you at the conference. My fourth piece of advice is to be brave in talking to speakers, but don't be a pest. Like with marketing, it's a hard line to walk. But many of the speakers are quite open for you to talk to them. But there will be times when you talk to somebody, it's quite clear that they're not remotely interested and they'd rather be somewhere else. In that case, just be polite and walk away and leave them alone. You don't want them to think of you as a pest. And your time is far better spent talking to people who do want to connect at that time, whether it be another speaker or whether it be another delegate. It comes on to my next point, which is just don't be the guy who follows speakers around. There are opportunities to make all sorts of new connections with your fellow delegates. Obviously, this is great for making new friendship with people in whatever the conference is about, but also it gives you the opportunity to meet people with other perspectives and ideas, in some cases opportunities for interviews, promotions and deals. That is that they may know somebody who can help you promote your book, or they may know of some service that you've not heard of that you might find useful. And it's just generally useful to make these connections. There are some people who go to conferences and all they are after is just stalking the speakers. And while this can be effective if they're very good networkers, in general I think it's missing out on the opportunities to meet other people. It's very easy to look at like people in terms of networking as in, oh, that person's important, I want to talk to them over this other person. But you really don't know if the people you're making connections with now at the conference might be the speakers in like 2 or 3 years' time. And the people who are speaking now may be nobody in a couple of years' time. My last piece of advice is to book a hotel near the conference venue. I made the mistake this year at Social Media Marketing World, booking a hotel that was about a 15-minute walk away. While that's not the end of the world, it doesn't mean that you can't really go back to your hotel room quickly to get something or to get changed. It makes it really difficult to go to a lot of the social events because they tend to be like the event hotel. While it was actually at the San Diego Conference Center this year, they had the event hotel as the Marriott, which is totally the other side of the conference center to where my hotel was. So it was another 5-minute walk. While I managed to get to lots of the networking functions, it was far more effort than it would have been if I just stayed in the Marriott and paid the extra cost for doing it. So this is something to consider if you go to a conference. If you can afford to go to whatever the event hotel is, or the one where you know the speakers will be staying at, then make that choice. If you're going flying somewhere, then often the cost of flying will be way more than the cost of the hotels. So it's one of those choices that I think it's worth booking up the correct hotel to stay in. I hope this advice has been useful to you if you're thinking of going to any conferences in the near future. I've met a few people at Social Media Marketing World who for potential future guests. So hopefully I'll be having a few more substantial interview shows going forward. Talk to you guys next week.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, please stop by iTunes and rate and leave a review. This helps make the show more visible. For free resources, show notes, and other helpful content, join the community at beginselfpublishing.com.